That goes one more time. On your order of service, come, come all of you, come all of us, bless the one who blesses, come, come all of you, come all of us, bless the one who blesses. Blessed is the blessed one, blessed is the giver of blessing, blessed in this moment now and every now to come. Blessed is the blessed one, blessed is the giver of blessing, blessed in this moment now and every now to come. Come all of you, come all of us, bless the one who blesses, come, come all of you, come all of us, bless the one who blesses.
Good morning. Hey, friends. Welcome to Mishkan. To those of you who are here and to our friends who are on the Zoom. I know that folks on the Zoom can't see, but you can see me looking at you right now. It's just that you are over there. So, hey, friends. We're really looking forward to welcoming you into our tent. Be aware that we may see you. So if you do not intend to be seen, feel free to turn your camera off, and you will have the ability to unmute yourself today. So with great power comes great responsibility. If you don't intend to be heard, just make sure that you pay attention to that. That actually goes for everyone, but everyone who's here, I want to hear your voices. And usually for Mishkan, I talk about how, look, this is our little rug, right? Wherever we put it, God shows up, and we pitch our tent together. And it happens to be that we are pitching a very large tent because we are in the sanctuary today. But I want us to picture that we're in sort of more of a yurt. It's summertime. Maybe we're at, Isabella Friedman, a retreat center. It's just us. And we can feel the breeze coming in, and here are the walls of our Mishkan. They just happen to be very glorious, glorious walls. So welcome to Shabbat. We will continue by giving thanks for our bodies and our souls with this setting of a Sher Yatzar, which has become a Mishkan favorite by Dan Nichols. No, we're not. See, this is why it's really important to have a service leading partner, is because they remind you what you planned. So the good news is that there is a traditional prayer that actually we say when we walk into a sanctuary, Ma Tovu. How beautiful is our tent today. And so we will continue with words of Ma Tovu, which are on page 74.
Our glorious yurt. מה טובו הולך יעקב, הולך יעקב, משכנותיך ישראל. מה טובו הולך יעקב, הולך יעקב, משכנותיך ישראל.
I'm so glad we started that way.
It's a wake up. It's a waker upper.
It is. And there's words in Matovu, Va'ani tefilati lecha, which are translated here, as for me, may my prayer come to you. But you can also translate them as, and I will be my prayer to you, right? This, right here, this is going to be my prayer, the way I live my life. And so let's now give thanks for these bodies and souls that are our prayers with Asher Yatzar.
I thank you for my life, body and soul. Help me realize I am beautiful and whole. I'm perfect the way I am, and a little broken too. I will live each day as a gift I give to you. Lots of room for harmonies here. Oh, oh, as a gift I give to you. Oh, 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 Baruch atah Adonai, Rofeh kol basar umafli la'asot. Baruch atah Adonai, Rofeh kol basar umafli la'asot.
I missed harmony during all those days of Zoom, right?
Amazing.
So good to
Amazing.
see everyone. So, Ma Gadlu, how great are God's works. We are going to, in a moment, share some everyday miracles. So we'll start off with these words. How great are your works, God? It's kind of an amazing world if you stop to look at it.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Magadlu Masechaya, Me'oram kul makshavotecha.
Hallelujah.
Magadlu Masechaya.
Hallelujah.
Me'oram kul makshavotecha.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Majestic sovereign, source of awe and wonder, when did you decide to make miracles so simple, so gentle, so quiet, and so small? Did our fear of your voice echoing from the mountaintop push you away? Or was this your plan all along, to show us your glory in fire and smoke, in the parted sea and in the darkness and in the light, and then to draw away, so that we would yearn for you to be near, for your power and might, for your holiness and for salvation? Or are you waiting patiently to return again with signs and wonders? So this is the part of our service where we give thanks for everyday miracles, and I am going to invite all of you to share my everyday miracle from just last night. After Shabbat services, I went out to dinner with my husband. We went to an Italian restaurant that has a backyard garden, and it's in a little tiny courtyard, and over the courtyard is this sort of lattice work, and through the lattice, it's grapevines that are over your head. And I looked up, and there were these little bunches of green grapes that were starting to grow in this sort of backyard in the middle of Manhattan in a very unnatural habitat. And that was my everyday miracle. Look, even in a backyard on 71st Street, there can be grapes growing over your head if you take a minute and look up at them. So I will invite folks, whether on Zoom or here today, to share what's an everyday miracle that you have experienced this week. And for those of you who have just joined us on Zoom, not only do you have the power to chat with each other in text during the service, just know that we may see what you text, so keep it clean. But also, you have the power to unmute yourselves, so I'll invite you to jump in whenever you like. So, let's see, who wants to share a miracle today? I see Arden Donahue. Arden.
Yeah. So sometime earlier this week, someone who I know who doesn't know that I'm a she, her, brought up, I don't know if it's true, I haven't looked into it, but probably is, about some cisgender women getting cut from the Olympics, but there still being some trans women. And basically I was like, okay, here we go. It's one of those like trans women shouldn't be in the Olympics, cheating and all that stuff, arguments. But I was like, okay, play it cool. And I just patiently listened and waited for a time to for me to speak. And I said, and your point being, and he confirmed his point. And rather than getting angry or lashing out, I just simply calmly pointed out certain kinds of facts, like that many cis women have a little bit of testosterone in them, and that many cis men have a lot of estrogen in, a little bit of estrogen in them, and that trans women who have had bottom surgery actually have less testosterone than many cis women, because they don't have that natural little bit of testosterone in there. And to my surprise, he quickly shifted and said that made sense and started agreeing with me and shifting his opinion. And I was very grateful that not only I was able to put in that work, but also it actually paid off in a small little way.
Beautiful. So in that, I'm hearing two blessings, actually. One is, as the Torah tells us, God created human beings, zachar unekeva, right? Masculine and feminine, and we learn that that is actually a merism. That means everything in between. We know that there's a spectrum of gender, so the miracle of creation being what it is, and also the miracle of an open mind, someone who is willing to open their heart and mind to another person, which is not to be taken for granted these days. Let's see. I see Monica. Oops, I'm going to give you a microphone because otherwise our friends won't be able to hear you. So, and we're going to make sure to speak into it because I hear that if we hold it at our navel, it doesn't actually work. So go for it.
This is actually in tandem with what Arden just said. I'm a leader of a gender identification initiative in the music industry that has, for the first time, bound the 10 top organizations that are led by women in the music industry. And our hope is to get gender as an identification issue on music so that we can actually quantify what women and other underserved communities are writing songs and releasing songs. And we had our first initiative with the industry this week, and so far it's been positive. It's going to be a long road to actually get adoption of it, but we're really excited about the possibilities.
Thank you. Amen. So thanks for the miracle of strength and leadership and vision. I'm going to bounce back to Paula on our Zoom.
So first of all, kudos. I thought there were two wonderful comments, and yay for both. But one thing that really struck me, and it's a little bit of the opposite. So as we're learning more about the COVID virus and how incredibly, devastating it is and how it changes, I think sometimes unbelievable, holy moly miracles become every day and we take them for granted. And so, for instance, I wonder if when the Torah was received, everybody went, oh my goodness, this came from God, or oh, now I have to separate meat from milk or whatever. But with the COVID, it's that the fact that we found a vaccine that is that effective in that short an amount of time is such an unbelievable miracle. It's amazing that, we still have so many people hesitating to recognize that. So I'm all for finding the amazement in those kind of miracles.
Thank you, Paula. For the record, religion is not anti-science. We give thanks for the miracle of our ability to discover the secrets of the world that will allow us to live more fully. Yes. I'm going to pass you thank you so much. Appreciate it.
It's so great to be here. This is like my first time here since we all know prior COVID. And I'm thrilled to be here this week to parallel what you said in the good side of life and nature. I had a birthday this week.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. And last year I had a party, and this year it's one-on-ones. So my Sunday one-on-one was a beautiful dinner at the boathouse, and then a gondolier ride in the lake. And the gondolier gentleman was singing songs, and giving us information about the lake. And I don't know, it was just beautiful nature. And also, tomorrow I'm going to the botanical gardens, actually. And I'm just thinking,
Something in a second.
there's such a dynamic of positive and negative. And if we look at the positive, we get positive. And of course, there's both, and God gives us both. And just very happy to be here today and be able to share again. And it's a pleasure.
Thank you. And I think we'll take one more from Alyssa.
But I have to say, it was a big step to come back to.
Welcome. Welcome. We're really good to see. It's so good to see your face.
So, hi everybody. I think a lot of people in the room will know exactly what I'm about to say, so if somebody else wants to say it, it's okay with me. My miracle is that I'm here, that I've been here live and in person for the entire month of July. I'm really sad that I have to go home tomorrow, but the miracle of this week is that despite some deep lows in my contract negotiations, I did sign a contract for an apartment here yesterday. The seller hasn't signed yet, so we're not there yet, but hopefully by the end of the year, I'll be back to being a New York City resident. And I want to thank everybody, both on Zoom and here in the room, for helping to make all of this possible. You are an amazing group of human beings, and I'm going to cry, so I'm going to give this back.
Well, our apologies to Chicagoland. We are stealing Alyssa Ballot. All right. Well, with all of those miracles and the ones that we may be holding close because we're not ready to share them yet, we'll dive back into these words of thanks.
V'anachnu nevarech ya ve'ata ve'ad olam, page 100. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, el bekodsho, hallelujah, birkia uzo, hallelujah, bigvurotav, hallelujah, kerov gudlo, hallelujah, 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 take our shofar, hallelujah, never בכינור, הללו בטוב ובחול, הללו במינים בעוגב, הללויה, 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 הללו בצלצלי שמה, הללו בצלצלי תרועה, כל הנשמה תהלליה, כל הנשמה תהלליה. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. One more time. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Call each other to prayer. Let's do it. Well, actually, this is a different Baruch Hu than we've done before, but
It
we
is a-
did have a preview.
It's true. The Baruch Hu remains the same. The melody, the melody, however, is quite new. So you can refer back to your order of service, the nigun, and the melody "Come," which we started with this morning.
And I'll invite you to rise either in spirit or in body.
One more time. Come, come all of you, come all of us, bless the one who blesses. Come, come all of you, come all of us, bless the one who blesses. Blessed is the blessed one, blessed is the giver of blessing, blessed in this moment now and every now to come. Blessed is the blessed one, blessed is the giver of blessing, blessed in this moment now and every now to come. Come all of you, come all of us, bless the one who blesses. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Vahed. Come all of you, come all of us, bless the one who blesses.
You can rest easy, have a seat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam יוצר אור ובורא חושך, עושה שלום ובורא את הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו,
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, melech
חושך, יוצא שלום ובורא את הכל, עושה שלום ובורא את הכל.
Calm or wind, cloud or sun, warm or cool, it's God's morning. A gift, a promise, a bird gliding on a breeze, singing ancient songs that need no translation. A ray of secret light stored for this very moment since the beginning of time. Let us rejoice, let us sing, let us tremble with love while the artist paints the sky and the hills, the seas and the plains in the colors of majesty. It's God's morning, sent as a reminder to love and to hope, sent as a reminder to celebrate the glory of creation.
אור חדש על ציון תאיר, ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו. ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות. On page 112, we remind ourselves in Hebrew and in English that we are loved with an everlasting love. Ahava Rabba, Ahavtanu, Ahavtanu, Ahava Rabba, Ahavtanu, Ahavtanu. We are loved, loved, loved by an unending love, an unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by an unending love, an unending love. וקרבתנו לשמך הקדוש אל הבאמת, להודות לך ויחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה. שמע ישראל, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Ve'ahavta Adonai Elohecha, b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha, ve'hayu hadivarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'beitecha ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להוד על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Have any of you been to a beach? this summer yet? Any beach goers? Or our friends? No beaches. No beaches. Well, if you haven't been to a beach lately, I want you to remember the last time you were at a beach. Particularly, I want you to remember the smell. There's that sort of seaweedy smell sometimes, depending on the tide, right? You might smell maybe some sunscreen, a little coconut wafting on the breeze. You might smell a little fishy. The salt, right? Might smell a little salty. If there's boats around, you might even smell some smells of, them puttering around. And if we think back, right, to that moment where our people crossed the sea into freedom, what did freedom smell like, right? What did freedom smell like? We know that their feet were a little sandy, right? Maybe they had some grit in their toes. What did you say, Eric?
Seems like it disinfected your house if you did a deep cleaning in your kitchen.
Right, it's a deep cleaning, right? Salts, this sort of disinfect. So maybe freedom felt clean. Maybe freedom smelt a little fishy. I don't know. But let's put ourselves back in that mindset as we both look back to that moment of freedom and cast our thoughts forward to the greater moment of redemption that we are all awaiting with words of Micha Mocha.
Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 Micha Mocha Micha Mocha ba'elim Adonai Micha Mocha nedar b'kodesh Nora tehilot osei fele Nora tehilot osei fele Shira chadasha shibechu geulim L'shimcha asfat hayam Yachad kulam hodu Vehimlichu vehamru Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed Tzur Yisrael kuma Bezrat Yisrael Ufedeichinu mecha Yehuda veYisrael Go aleinu Adonai tzvaot shemo Kedosh Yisrael Baruch atah Adonai Gal Yisrael.
We now turn to the central words of our service, the Amidah. We rise in body or spirit and turn to page 124.
Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid Tehilatecha Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avoteinu v'Imoteinu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagidor v'Hanorah El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, מי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. יה לה 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 לה, יה לה 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 לה, יה לה 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 לה, יה לה לה. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר אדירנו, אדוני אדוננו, מה אדיר שמך בכל הארץ. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו מלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el
Our prayers give us words for when we don't have them. So our ancestors just gave us all of those words that we might want to pray today, but maybe there are some others that are resting in our hearts. So we'll take a few moments in silence, however you like to talk to God. If you want to sit down and have a chat or stand before God's majesty, let's take a minute to say what needs to be said.
Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Chen v'chesed Chen v'chesed v'rachamim Chen v'chesed v'rachamim v'rachamim Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael Amecha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Hear, O Israel, Adonai, our God is one. Hear, O Israel, Adonai, our God is one. Hear, O Israel, Adonai, our God is one. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Elohei, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo, Gadlu Adonai iti, Unaromema Shemo Yachdav. Hallelu, 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 Hallelu. Kohan Shama, Te'aleluya, Hallelu, Hallelujah. Kohan Shama, Te'aleluya, Hallelu, Hallelujah. Hallelu, 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 Hallelu.
Whew. I I feel like, Olympians need a warm-up. We need a warm-up for Torah study. That was delightful. So does anyone not have a text study sheet? Who needs one? For those of you who are joining us online, you can find it on our live stream page, so feel free to follow along. Today we are in Parshat Akev, in the book of Deuteronomy. Yes, sorry? Thank you. Mitchell is offering very kind words about my sermon last night. I'm so glad it struck a chord. Can I give you a microphone just so our friends online aren't behind? I don't want to amplify praise, but here you go.
I'm raising this now because I looked ahead and saw that we're not discussing what you discussed last night. But this morning, as I was walking the dog, I was thinking about how you addressed an issue that I have wrestled with for years, and that is what I have always viewed as the conflict between the American myth of the rugged individual and our communal sense. And while you didn't address it last night, because you really focused more on the communal aspect, what I realized is our traditional Siddur doesn't make it an either or. It makes it a both and that two truths can exist simultaneously. And I'd never thought about it that way. I'd always thought about it oppositionally. And I mean, it also reminded me of the, in my left pocket, I'm nothing but dust and ashes, and in my right pocket, the world was made for me. So in that spirit, thank you. It was really very well done.
Thank you. Yeah, I did a lot of thinking about, particularly in the environmental world, there are a lot of debates going on right now about, is the idea of telling people to focus on their personal responsibility for doing recycling or turning off turning their thermostat down or doing things like that, is that misplaced because it turns attention away from the bigger forces that are actually controlling most of climate change? Or actually, is there a way in which creating a daily personal orientation to the change that is needed to happen helps us advocate for those bigger changes in a communal way? And just like in the mezuzah, where we have both of those texts, right, the individually oriented one and the communally oriented one, they're written together on that scroll and bound up together, so hopefully we can hold them both together. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
There's also, if I can just for a second, there's a huge political ramification as well, because for some people who are so immersed in individual liberty, as opposed to others who have a more of a communal focus, there's got to be a way for both truths to exist.
Yeah, and I would say, there's a way in which our tradition is very countercultural. For those of us living in America, if we were living in Scandinavia or Japan, it might feel a little different, but there's a countercultural weight, right, to both things needing to be true. We both are responsible for our own actions, and we have, we don't get to pray unless we have 10 people, right? There's a really interesting halachic debate about whether a Jew would be permitted to go volunteer to live on Mars without other Jews, right? Is it a Jewish thing to live not in community? Can you be Jewish on your own? Well, I want to jump into these texts. Do you mind, Eric? I promise. I guarantee.
Good cue. I'm just congratulating the fellow on the cue cards he wrote.
Great, thank you.
Dean Martin always needs cue cards.
Thanks. Okay, so here we are in Akev, and we read some words which, for those of you who grew up going to summer camp or otherwise saying the Birkat Hamazon, blessing after meals, Ve'achalta v'savata uverachta et Adonai Elohecha. When you have eaten your fill, give thanks to Adonai, your God, for the good land which God has given you. So these words from our portion appear in that Birkat Hamazon, the blessing that we say after meals. And the reason that our sages tell us that we say the blessing after meals is because of the order of words in this verse. Ve'achalta, you shall eat. V'savata, you shall be satisfied. Uverachta, and then you shall give thanks. So they say that's what tells us that we actually have to eat and then be satisfied and then give thanks, and that's why we have the blessing after meals. So I wanted to think a little bit today about blessings. I love it, Ellen, that you chose the Chava Morel setting of the Baruch Hu this morning because there's this beautiful line, right? Come, let us bless the one who blesses, right? Rabbi Bachya says, well, what does it mean? Why does God need us to bless God? God is the source of blessing, right? So what does it mean to actually take part in this act of blessing? What's the why? So if you look on your text sheets, we have, of course, because I never go in order, so if we look at number 4, it was taught in a Baraita, which is a really just a piece of text that didn't make it into to the Mishnah, so it's like a sidecar to the Mishnah. Rabbi Meir used to say, a person must bless 100 blessings every day. And where do they get that? From a verse that says, now Israel, what, which is ma, does God ask of you? And he says, don't read it as ma, but as mea, which is the word for 100. So the rabbis love doing this wordplay, but we have this tradition that we're supposed to read, that we're supposed to find 100 reasons to say a blessing during the day. Now, the good news for people who pray the Amidah 3 times a day is that you can knock off a lot of those blessings just by doing that. But for the rest of us, we may have to look a little harder for everyday miracles to bless. And so I thought we would take a look in texts 5 and 6 of some of the blessings that exist. So can I ask, Alyssa, would you be willing to read text 5 for us? This comes from the section of the Talmud that's about blessings. I can't hear you. Let's see. Maybe I turned it off instead of turning it on.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank
right.
you.
Mishnah. This Mishnah discusses the blessings recited over various foods. How does one recite a blessing over fruits? Over different fruits that grow on a tree, one recites, who creates fruit of the tree, with the exception of wine. Although wine is produced from fruit of the tree, due to its significance, its blessing differs from other fruits of the tree. Over wine, one recites, who creates fruit of the vine. Over fruits that grow from the earth, one recites, who creates fruit of the ground, with the exception of bread. Bread, too, is significant, and its blessing differs from other fruits of the ground, as over bread, one recites, who brings forth bread from the earth. Over herbs and leafy vegetables, one recites, who creates fruit of the ground. Rabbi Yehuda says that there is room to distinguish between fruits that grow from the earth, herbs, and leafy vegetables. Although they are all fruit of the ground, since they have different qualities, the blessing on the latter is, who creates various kinds of herbs.
Great. So, why? Right? There's this taxonomy of all of these different blessings. If it's on a tree, it's this blessing, unless it's grapes, in which case it's a different blessing. If it grows out of the ground, it's one blessing, unless it's bread, in which case there's a different one. So why? Why do we have this taxonomy, Monica?
It's
let's see.
Hello?
Or-
Is that on?
Let's see. Maybe use the one Mitchell has because that one definitely was working.
Double-fisted mics.
Perfect.
It's the rabbi's way of teaching us gratitude. If we're blessing everything, we have to be conscious of what it is and that it's a gift from God. And you have to be very present if you're saying blessings over every different taxonomy in the creation.
Great. Anyone on Zoom? Oh, sorry. Yes, Paula. Paula.
So I was going to say something similar. I think we would call it mindfulness. And so there is, it's very easy to be very rote. And even some people who do this regularly, it becomes somewhat rote. But to be very aware of not just the specifically required blessings over each thing, but also to have the mindset of our actions and our words. So every time we treat each other as there's the divinity that we see in each other, or our actions are blessing-like, I think that counts towards the 100, even if it's not specified.
Great, thank you. I see, let's see, Andrew?
Thank you. So first, there's just the fascinating botany of it all, to have to think through, well, is this from the ground? Is this from a tree? You actually have to go through a bit of a calculus, and that creates a sense of gratitude, to think about all of the steps in the process that led to that piece of fruit or that piece of food landing in your hand. I think that's a very beautiful practice. And then I just want to point out about the bread in particular. It kind of tickles me that it says, who brings forth bread from the earth, because as far as I know, there are many steps between the wheat and the bread. In fact, that's a miracle that someone figured that out in the first place, that we have this beautiful pillowy substance that we get to eat that came from a very different type of food, and it involves our hands as well. So that duality that Mitchell mentioned earlier of is it God, is it us, is present in the blessing as well.
Right, and elsewhere in this week's portion, God says, you're going to get to the promised land and things are going to be great. Your crops are going to be going really well, everything's going to be perfect. And don't let yourself start thinking at that point that it's all due to your own work, right? That all of that is due to you. Remember that actually I'm the one who brought you out of Egypt, because there's a way in which when we're feeling satisfied, and particularly self-satisfied, right? Maybe that's why after we're satisfied in particular, we have to give thanks to God. We tend to ascribe all the good things that happen to us to our own actions as opposed to the blessings and gifts that we've been given. And so maybe that's why the bread, we have to pretend it came straight from the ground and not give ourselves too much credit. Although for anyone who did Rabbi Lorge's challah braiding this week on Coffee with Clergy, you get lots of credit for following that crazy 9-strand braid that he did. Great, Eric. Can you hold the microphone just so our friends online can hear you? Thank you.
There's a famous radio commentator called Rush Limbaugh. He said, talent on loan from God. It's not your own talents, but something loaned from God to do his job.
I think that's probably the only time I've ever agreed with Rush Limbaugh, so I feel like that's a Shehechianu moment right here. Right, but also in this portion is this idea that actually wealth is not ours, right? Everything belongs to God, and that our job is to kind of make sure it's distributed appropriately, right? And if we put ourselves in that mindset, it's a lot easier to hold what we have lightly because it didn't belong to us in the first place. And with that, I would like to, I see some other hands, but I want to just bring in one text on that. So text number 3, Also from the section of the Talmud on blessings, Rabbi Levi contrasted two verses. One states, "The world and all that is contained within it belongs to God." Another verse says, "The heavens belong to God, but the earth he gave to man." So which is it? He resolved the contradiction by stating that one verse refers to the status of the world before reciting a bracha, a blessing, and the other to after its recitation. Rabbi Hanina Bar Papa said, when someone derives enjoyment from this world without a bracha, it's tantamount to stealing from God. And so this is an important thing because I think, we grow up in for those of us who live in the United States, a Christian-dominated culture where the idea of what it is to bless something is that we are somehow conferring on it some holiness, right? So you take, for our Catholic friends, right, you take crackers that are crackers and someone who has the power to do so blesses them and they transform into something else, right? That's not our idea of blessing, actually. Our idea of blessing is getting permission from God to use something that currently belongs to God or to enjoy something that currently is in God's realm, right? So I see an apple, that apple, right? I didn't create apples. I'm not the source of creation. That currently belongs to God. But if I acknowledge that, then God is nice enough to let me enjoy the fruit that I've found. But that's the transaction that's going on. The apple is no more holy or less holy, but if I say a blessing or not, right? The apple is holy because it's part of creation. What the blessing does is reminds me of that, reminds me that it's part of creation. Okay, so other thoughts around the room? Ed, Eric, would you mind handing Ed the microphone?
Hello?
Yes.
So, the brilliance in this room and that as extended over there has helped me a lot today because, I hear all of this in the ears of a Reformed Jew and say, what? These are rules that men are creating for the purpose of tripping us all up, giving us additional burdens that if I take something without a blessing, I've stolen it from God. It doesn't seem right to me. But at the same time, and maybe because I'm about to see him, my baby brother, who is 60 now, so not so much a baby, but when he used to, when people sneezed, he would say that they blessed, because that's what people say, God bless you. And now I realize that was his way of getting up to 100. So.
Yes. Well, so let's look at some other ways to get to 100. Okay, so let's see. Susan, would you mind reading text 6 for us?
Mishnah Berachot. One that sees a place where miracles were done for Israel should say, "Blessed is the one who did miracles for our ancestors in this place." If one sees a place that had idol worship uprooted from it, say, "Blessed is the one who uprooted idol worship from our land." On comets and on earthquakes and on lightning and on thunder and on storms, say, "Blessed be the one whose strength might fill the world." On mountains and on hills and on seas and on rivers and on deserts, say, "Blessed is the one who makes the works of the beginning." Bereshit. Rav Yehuda says, one who sees the great sea says, "Blessed is the one who made the great sea," only if he sees it occasionally. On rain and on good news say, "Blessed is the one who is good and does good." And on bad news say, "Blessed are you, the true judge." When one builds a new house and acquires new vessels, they say, "Blessed is the one that kept us alive and sustained us and brought us to this time."
That last part is the Shehechianu.
Shehechianu.
Woo!
Yeah.
Very exciting. Great. So it turns out, right, Yes. Doron? Hi, Doron. You need to unmute yourself, Doron.
Okay, I'm okay now?
Yep.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I was just thinking about the frequency with which we say blessings and what effect that has on us. Now, one of the rabbis earlier took the word ma and made it into me'ah, and so he has that notion that we should say 100 a day, something of that sort. But I wonder in human psychology, which has a greater impact on us, saying something 100 times a day or saying it occasionally and thereby being forced to think about it a little bit. I have a couple of examples in mind. I remember when the last time I was in Israel and went to the Western Wall, to the Kotel, there was a restroom over on the side. And as people are waiting there, I was looking at the wall, and on the wall there is the blessing for what you should say when you are relieving yourself. Now, of course, people can immediately think, oh, that's funny, etc. But then you look at the words and you say how profound it is that the complex bodily mechanisms that we have that allow us to eat and ultimately to produce waste. What an extraordinary miracle that is, that there's a blessing there on the wall before you go into the bathroom, or maybe afterwards. And obviously that's not a blessing that I have said often. And I looked at it and I remember thinking about that and thinking about it later. One other example, and it was actually mentioned in what was just read. I went to a yeshiva many years ago, and so I get emails, and occasionally somebody passes away. And when they send an email on somebody who passed away, the three words that appear on the email is Baruch Dayan Emet, blessed is he who has judged correctly and wisely. So when somebody dies, and in the list that you just read, it says when something bad happens, we bless God for his wisdom, for having acted correctly. We don't know why or how, but that's what we affirm at that point. And that's, again, not a blessing that I say every day. But when I do see it occasionally, I know that I stop and think about it. I think of the person, if I happen to have known who they were, and I think of those uplifting words at a time of sorrow, which is a little bit like our, when we say Kaddish, which are actually not sad words, but uplifting words. So my thoughts in that direction is that when you do something not every day, and when you least expect it, it often has the greatest impact on you. And I'll just say one final thing. It's not quite the same, but I remember one time years ago, I was in France. I was involved in a very bad auto accident. And fortunately, obviously, we survived, but the car was totaled. And as I was being taken to the hospital in the ambulance, and I remember having that moment when I realized I was alive. And, the legs were working and the arms were working. The only thing that came to my mind is to say Shema Yisrael. And I'm sure other people here have had similar moments, perhaps. And if I would have guessed, is that what I would have said? Is that what I'm thankful for? But it just struck me, these three examples, that the ones that often make the most profound effect on you are the ones that you do not say every day and repeat constantly until perhaps it becomes a blur.
That's a great question. So is it better to walk around in a sea of blessings, right? And to be used to, okay, if every time I take a drink of water, I'm going to say this blessing, right? Or does it have a greater impact if you sort of save it? You save your blessings for the really big moments. I don't know if anyone has thoughts. I see Phyllis's hand. We haven't heard from Phyllis yet today.
I think all of these blessings are to make us pay attention. Sometimes we gobble down lunch and don't even remember what we just ate. Of so many of the blessings that we talked about, it's raining. But by thinking, the blessings make us think about what we've just done and pay more attention to the world around us instead of just quickly going through the day.
Great, thank you. I did want to share one more text. I know that I love learning with you guys, so I know we're getting close to the end of our time. So Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch says that if we say a blessing before partaking of any pleasure, it expresses the resolution that we employ any renewed vital energy gained from this pleasure to serve God's purposes. Only if we make this resolution will we become worthy of enjoying that pleasure. So what does it do to your mindset if you say, well, I'm going to bless this food that I'm about to eat? And what that means is that I am dedicating the energy that it will give me to go do good in the world, right? What is that orientation? And if you are consistently doing that orientation. Cynthia, I know you've had your hand up for a bit. Can I borrow, where's the microphone that's working right now? Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to speak directly into it, as I've been told to do. I keep thinking and want to return back to the idea of doing this with intention throughout the day. I have suffered in the past from a lot of existential anxiety, and I found by being mindful, being truly present, and doing blessings throughout the day, really paying attention to my life and to where these things come from, that I find purpose, I find peace, I slow my life down so that I'm really making it count, and I do what Rabbi Heschel says, or how I interpret it, is to live my life as a work of art. And and I think of being a work of art as what you started out with, of using our whole bodies and seeing it as being created in the image of God and dedicating it back to that. So for me, this is such an important tool, not just for gratitude, but just to slow my life down, really be present, and really pay attention to everything.
Great, thank you. Well, I gave you guys a couple of Shabbos gifts here that you can enjoy over lunch. One is a piece by Rabbi Jill Jacobs explaining why it is we don't say a blessing when we give tzedakah. So, interesting, fun fact. It's because actually the person that we're giving tzedakah to has a choice about whether to accept it, and we should not presume to take away that person's agency. The other beautiful piece is by Abraham Joshua Heschel, who talks about walking around the world in a state of radical amazement and how this might change our lives. So my prayer for all of us as we move out of this period of study and into the rest of Shabbat is that may we all experience 100 reasons today to feel God's blessing. May we look at the very ordinary things around us, like a piece of bread, and be caused to wonder, where did that come from? What was its journey from a seed that went in the ground to the rain that fell on it to the sprouting? Whose hands actually harvested that wheat, and who put it in a truck to be transported? And are they safe, and are they healthy? And what happened when it got to the bakery? Who thought of the yeast thing anyways, however long ago, right? Thank you to that person, and thank you to the baker who probably woke up a lot earlier than all of us are willing to wake up to make that bread for us. And how amazing is it that that person was endowed with not only the health in their body and their soul, but also the wisdom of how to do such a great job at that. And then the people who had to take that and transport it to wherever we were going to buy it. And the fact that the person who sold us that bread was healthy enough to wake up in the morning and dress themselves and get themselves to work so that they could sustain their family, and that we had the means to purchase that bread through the work that we were able to do, which is not only a result of our own actions, but a result of the gifts and benefits and privileges that we have been given in life, that we had that money in our hand and the access to the store to buy that piece of bread, that our bodies are working well enough to digest it. Anyone who has ever had to be on a liquid diet knows what a miracle it is to be able to do that. And the fact that that from that piece of grain, our bodies are sustained and allow us to go out in the world and to find more things to offer gratitude for. So may we all the next piece of bread we all enjoy, may we take that spiritual journey with it. So thank you. And now we're going to read some words of Torah. I realized that because we're all family here, I never introduced myself. So for folks who are coming in late, I'm Rabbi Nicole Auerbach, and I am thrilled to be joined here by my friend and mentor, Cantor Ellen Dreskin, who's going to chant some Torah for us today. And she's going to chant some beautiful verses from this portion, which are not the verse that we just studied, mainly because it took me a while to figure out what I wanted to learn with you guys today, but also because no one should miss these verses because they are so beautiful.
I will only add, because I didn't know which verses that we were studying this morning, it actually does begin with, what does God ask of you? Ma shoel mimcha is the first verse we'll be chanting today, from which we get Mea, the 100 blessings comes from this very verse.
We'll see, it was all intentional then. That's great.
God is hiding in all the coincidences. I'm convinced.
Great. Okay. So I think we all get the aliyah today. So we are not going to approach the bima, but we invite you to stand to share in the blessing for reading Torah, which is on a page, I am sure, that I do not have with me. Or you can just go along. All right.
Going with the flow here. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach, Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'avim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai notein ha'torah. Amen. Ve'ata Yisrael, ma Adonai Elohecha shoel me'imach. And now, Israel, what does Adonai your God ask of you? Ki im liyirah et Adonai Elohecha lalechet b'chol derachav u'le'ahava oto. Only that you be in awe of Adonai your God, to walk in all God's ways and to love God. V'la'avod et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha, to serve Adonai your God with all your heart and with all your soul. Lishmor et mitzvot Adonai v'et chukotav, to protect the mitzvot of Adonai and the laws, asher anochi mitzavcha hayom latov lach, which I command you today for your own good. Hein l'Adonai Elohecha, these belong to God. Hashamayim ushmei Hashamayim, the heavens and the heavens of the heavens. Haaretz v'chol asher ba, the earth and everything in it or on it. Rak bavoteha chashak Adonai le'ahava otam, only your ancestors did God desire to love them. Vayivchar bizar'am achareihem, and chose their descendants after them. Bachem, that's y'all. Mikol ha'amim kayom hazeh, from all the peoples up till this day. Umaltem et orlat levavchem, so remove the hardened coverings of your heart. Ve'arpechem lo takshu od, and please stop being so obstinate. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
You may be seated, and now in the presence of our Torah, we call to mind those who are in need of healing. If there is someone who you would like to pray for today, feel free to bring their name into this space, whether by Zoom or in person. May all of those who have been mentioned feel God's presence and know that they are not alone.
Page 253. Mi sheberach avoteinu mekor habracha leimoteinu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
We now rise in honor of the Torah.
V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe livnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. Yalai lai 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 yalai lai lai yalai lai 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 yalai lai lai yalai lai 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 yalai lai lai yalai lai 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 lai. Eitz chaim hi lamachazikim ba betomcheha meushar derachecha darchei noam b'chol netivoteha shalom. Ashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva Kaddish yameinu kekedem.
We continue with the words from our Aleinu prayer, V'hashivota.
V'hashevota el levavecha ki Adonai hu Elohim v'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol Bayom hahu, bayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo, u'shemo, u'shemo echad.
Be seated. We now take some time to think about those who are no longer with us, but whose blessings continue with us. Maybe folks who, when we learned they were gone, we were asked to say those impossible words, "Blessed be the true judge." So we as a Central Synagogue community this morning are mindful of these who our community has lost in the past 30 days. Chris Amsel, father of Josh; John Blauner, father of Michael, Wendy, and Andrew; Tamara Renee Watson, mother of Robert O. Brown; Erwin Diamond, father of Lynn, Michelle, and Sue Ann; S. Jeffrey Garfield, father of Max; Elvira Gellis, mother of Denise and Jan; Nan Leader, mother of Cynthia, Douglas, Jane, and William, and grandmother of David Gleckel; Miriam Legino, mother of Joan; Mervyn Silverberg, father of Shawnee, Lori, Robin, Yael, and Jordana; Robert A. Skittle, brother of Penny Haitkin; and Ann Yerman, wife of Frederick and mother of Emily Steinman and Deborah Lobel. If you are in the first 7 days of mourning a loved one, I invite you to rise and share the name, or unmute and share the name of the one you are mourning today. Thank you. And if you're in the first 30 days of mourning, the period of Shloshim, I invite you to rise and share the name of your loved one. If you're in the first year of mourning, Shana. Thank you. Thank you. I see Jerry says Frederick Ellis Ward, Beverly Johnson. If you are observing a yahrzeit, an anniversary of death this morning, I invite you to rise and share the name of the one you're remembering.
David Gresser.
Thank you. So for all of these whose names we have heard and those we're holding in our hearts, for those who have no one left to say Kaddish for them, we rise as one community for the words of Kaddish Yatom on page 294. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divrach yiruteh ve'amlich malchuteh, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'alam u'almei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dekudesha barichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiram be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, Hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen.
Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen.
For those of you who may have been joining me for morning meditation these past 2 weeks, you know that we've been looking at the words of Adon Olam, this ancient poem that talks about how the very same God that existed before creation and will exist after everything is the same God that we can trust with our souls, that we put ourselves and can be held by that same force that started the universe. So we'll join together in Words of Adon Olam, which are on page 321.
Adon olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra lehet nasa b'chefzo kol azai melech shemo nikra azai melech shemo nikra be'acharei kiklot hakol levado yimlok nora והוא היה, והוא הווה, והוא יהיה בתפארה, והוא יהיה בתפארה, והוא אחד ואין שני, להמשילו, להכבירה, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמשרה, ולא העוז והמשרה, והוא אלי וחי גואלי וצור חבלי והיצרה, והוא ניסי ומנוס לי, מנת כוסי ביום אקרא, מנת כוסי ביום אקרא, בידו אפקיד רוחי בהיתישן בעירה, ועם רוחי גוויעתי, אדוני לי ולא אירא, אדוני לי ולא אירא.
Well, I am grateful for the miracle that brought us all here together today, including Lisa, who is joining from the beach. That is the way to do Shabbos, Lisa. Way to go. And I'll ask our AV friends to leave the Zoom open so that our friends online can have their little schmooze while we're having our in-person schmooze. Shabbat shalom,
Shabbat shalom.
everyone.